So what is Thai U? If you haven't seen the website or haven't filled out the form, you know, it's all about empowering college students with the tools to become entrepreneurs. I consider education, intention building, um, you know, design thinking workshops as tools. These are all tools that you have to be able to, continue your journey into being an entrepreneur. So, as I mentioned, this is the first one. You've seen this if you haven't, already got an email from Garima, who's the project director for this initiative. Uh, this chart is telling you when the next one will be, and then who's going to be teaching it. So today you have me and Summer, and if you get this link from Garima, you can click on our names. You'll find us on LinkedIn. Everything about our LinkedIn is there. The next one will be on February 9th. But Pradeep Yuvraj is going to be teaching one on pitch skills and investor relations. Uh, this slide, I think, just to make sure, I think for half of the people around the world, the deadline has passed. The other half, the deadline is still open. But you're going to see a message on the website that says, look, if you are, or your friends still want to register, some chapters are going to be allowing extensions, and this will give you an opportunity to still take part into the program even after these workshops have started. Okay, so basically that's the message from Ty that I wanted to give you. Now, I talked about innovation thinking. What does it mean to be innovative? And I break it down into two big things. It's about building awareness, and the second part is inspiring action. So what does building awareness mean to you? For me, building awareness is about, you know, learning as much as you can about every subject you care about. It may be learning science one day, math another, and just, you know, uh, college core, just going out and experiencing and learning as much as you can. The reason that becomes important is it allows you to use a skill called association. The skill of association, it gives you the ability to connect invisible dots. In other words, applying one lesson or learning from one subject to another. It allows you to put yourself in different perspectives or different shoes. Um, you know, someone famous once said that creativity is just about connecting invisible dots, and these invisible dots are basically adopted from other fields. So in other words, if you look at the world's fastest train, its design is borrowed by studying beaks of penguins. Think about that for a second. You're combining people who study sea creatures or wildlife, and they're adopting what they've learned about animals and applying it towards creating a faster plane or a faster train. All of us, we use, today we use the internet, and the routers in our homes, uses the basic node concept. Did you realize that that technology, the entire internet technology, was put together by studying ants? Yes, those little tiny ants that if one ant finds a source of food, the entire colony in record time will know where the food is. And they'll even know how to get the food and how to bring it back to the queen ant. So someone took time to just look at how, ants have this ability of leaving, scent. And they leverage that technology or learning into IP packets. IP packets that now, all over the world are being used to connect one computer to another. So the skill of association is super important. My advice for you is learn as much as you can. You're in school, this is the best time to educate yourself on the wildest subjects and everything you can. Just become a sponge. Observe as much as you can. The second skill is the skill of observation. It's funny as it sounds, our planet has been here way before us, and it'll be here way after us. And when I say us, I mean the human race. The skill of observation is we can learn a lot just by observing, by watching the way the world works. If you're interested in creating a new deli or a restaurant, just go sit down at a restaurant and observe how operations work. Look at the chef in the kitchen. How do they manage? Look at the cashier. Look at the waiter, and just sit down and observe. There's a lot you can learn by just observing, and that observation helps us build awareness. The more you know, the more invisible dots you can connect, the better aware you're going to be. So then the third skill is the skill of questioning. Once you've learned and educated yourself, once you've observed and you understood the process and you have a good idea of how a system works, question why or how or when or who. Take the time to now think of better ways by questioning. Ask an expert, ask a mentor, why is it this way? Why can't we do it this way? Somebody once said, why do I have to wait for a taxi to randomly show up? Why can't I just let the taxi know I'm here? And boom, came Uber. Boom, came Lyft and all the other disruptive technology in the taxi industry. The act of questioning, and not just questioning for the sake of asking, just a random question, questioning because you really want to understand builds awareness. And that is what you oughta do. So those three things, um, association, uh, questioning, and I forgot the third one. What was the third one, Summer? Help me out. Did you get it?
Association, observation, and questioning.
Awesome. See, at least I have one
I was
person
taking
listening.
notes.
At least I have one person listening. So that was good. Thank you. But then, you know, you've learned everything you can. Your awareness is high. You see a problem, you've identified something. So the second part about inspiring action. Now, why is that important? I always say, and so many of my mentors have said to me, Ravi, ideas are dime a dozen, which means you can find ideas and solutions a dime a dozen. It's available, it's cheap. What's tough is ideas that are acted on, solutions that are really addressing a problem someone's having, or rather, knowing what the problem you're solving is more important than the solution. So the act of actually taking action is so important that you sit there and you think about it, but unless it comes out of your brain and it's on paper or it's in a pitch deck being presented to some random people like judges or potential uh, you know company employees or just potential customers, unless it's actually acted on, it's really useless. So what point is there to be brilliant but then do nothing with your brilliance? So you got to act. So inspire action in yourselves, in your teams. There are two steps or two skills you can practice in taking action. The first skill is the skill of experimentation. I know it sounds silly, but you gotta experiment. It is, you know, research literacy 101. When you experiment, you have a hypothesis, you have some theory, then you test the theory, whether it be a business idea or a new innovation idea. You got to try and you got to test it, and then you got to fix it. Something's not going to work, something's not working as the best. You got to reiterate and do it again until you have experimented enough and with your awareness have really developed something you feel strong about. The second part of taking action is you got to network. Networking is such an important skill. Meeting new people, experiencing other cultures or other perspectives, it's going to develop you as a great entrepreneur because you're aware, and you inspire action. Knowing people makes a big difference. Reaching out to people, mentors like Summer and myself or others, and and sharing with other people what you're trying to do, gaining insight, asking someone, hey, what's your story? How can I help? It will go a long way. So I think that's my 10 minutes of what I call innovation thinking. If you can develop that mindset, you will be an innovator in the 21st century. Now, I want to switch it over to Summer Reeves. And so Summer, as I've shared with you, she's in Houston. She is I want to say senior vice president. Summer, is that true? Keep me honest.
That is correct. I am currently Senior Vice President of Commercial Strategy.
Excellent. And Summer draws from her 17 years of focused experience on user-centered designs, innovation work, and business management. She's worked with startups to Fortune 500 companies, helping them understand their challenges, uncover opportunities, and consider how to bring together the combination of technology, business strategy, design to develop successful paths forward for everyone. Uh, Summer herself is an entrepreneur. I've seen her work and designs on LinkedIn. She does beautiful, I don't know, what do you call them? Homescaping? What do you call something where you make your house beautiful? Artsy, right?
Interior design?
Okay, interior design. That's good. But that's your
Yeah.
superpower. But Summer, tell our students and for a little bit more about design thinking, and you've got the next 30 minutes on this
Awesome.
workshop. Mhm.
Okay, awesome. I thought I had more time, so we're gonna have to jump through some things here.
Sure.
But we'll work through that. But thanks so much. Very excited to be here. One quick note before we jump in is that you are gonna need some paper and pen. We are gonna do a couple interactive things here. And so if you don't have some paper and pen in front of you, do try to grab that real quick so we can have a little bit of fun as we go through this. So I think Ravi gave a great introduction here, so I'm not going to dig into this too much. What I will say is, as Ravi mentioned, I've really spent a lot of my career around kind of thinking through design thinking in a lot of different ways. And a lot of the different things that I've done have leveraged a design thinking approach in one way or another, even if it's not specifically kind of like right in front of you. So super excited to talk about this particular topic today. And as always, thanks to Ravi and the team for inviting me to join. So, to kick things off real quick, I want you to just spend a moment. We're going to cut down on some of these minutes, but I want you, if you've got that pen and paper in front of you, I want you to quickly sketch out your ideal wallet. So, I want you to go ahead and just start sketching that out, what you think the best ideal wallet design might be. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna kind of go through and speak over a couple things here, just to keep us on time. So most people, when they're given a problem, they jump immediately to ideas for how to fix the problem. So just like I said, hey, we need a ideal wallet. Most people are going to jump in and start designing on that. That's human nature. Design thinking, however, gives us an approach that really helps us get to a more successful solution by taking the time to understand the problem that we face and then vet and iterate on our ideas. So, when we're starting this process, we begin with identifying a challenge area. So, what is the problem that needs to be solved? Next, we want to diverge out by gathering lots of information about the problem area and the people that are impacted by the problem. And you'll hear a lot of similar things to what Ravi was talking about when he was talking about like innovation thinking, because there's a lot of similarities into that and kind of how a design thinking approach comes into play as well. Then what you need to do is take all of that broad research that you've done, all those observations that Ravi was talking about, and start converging that into key findings that are going to help you really uncover the root of the problem and better understand the wants and needs of the people that are impacted by your challenge area. then using that defined information, we often have to reframe our problem statement because in most situations, we want to solve for the root of the problem and not the symptom, which is quite often what we see on the surface. And then next, we want to diverge out again. Using that reframe problem statement, we brainstorm all the different ideas that we could solve for the problem. We want to go for volume here. All the simple, all the complex, all the crazy ideas. The more you push yourself, the more likely you are to find some really great gold in those ideas. But now that you have all these great ideas, we really need to select one to move forward with. And how do we do that? Well, there's 3 key considerations to help you evaluate your ideas before you make a final selection. Number 1, would people want this? So think about who your impacted users are. Would they want the solution that you've come up with? Would anyone outside of that group that you originally identified derive value from that solution so that you can have like larger market capture? Secondly, can we technically do it? So any idea, so an idea to break the speed of light is good and all, but it's 100% not feasible right now with what we know in science. So we want to make sure that we're actually coming up with something that we can technically do. And then lastly, we need to think about, should we do it? Is there a good business opportunity behind this idea? Do we think we could make money or create a viable business from it? Would people fund this as we go to pitch it? So once we select the idea we think we want to move forward with, then we oftentimes will fill out like a business canvas. And so I'm sure you guys are probably doing some sort of activity like that. I know you're doing a business plan, but a lot of times we'll use that business canvas to help us think through the business implications of the idea that we've identified to ensure there's real business value behind that big idea, which is going to help you as you kind of move forward in the competition. Back to this, once we've selected and done the business analysis on our idea, we really need to go and prototype it. So prototypes come in a lot of different styles. They could be digital if you're doing something, if your idea is like a mobile app, you might be in Figma or another design software actually creating a digital prototype. It could be physical. You could actually be physically building something or 3D modeling something and 3D printing it. It could just be sketches and visualizations. But the point is to have something visual that can be discussed with others and for business pitches and competitions, really help the judges align on your vision. Which leads us to being able to actually test your idea with the proposed user group for feedback, allowing you to really quickly iterate your idea. This is also really powerful if you have this available or to showcase that you've done this in your pitch and be able to communicate where you've actually like built traction for your idea in a possible user group already. Finally, you're going to take that final idea and learning into your solution, or in this case, your business plan summary and pitch. And this divergence and convergence model is something that we call a double diamond approach, and often works in conjunction with a design thinking model where we look to understand, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So backing up a little bit from where we started, instead of jumping right into the solution, let's begin with a bit more of a challenge. So how might we create the best wallet? Well, we want to start with actually understanding our user. We often make assumptions about the users we're designing for. So what do you think, for instance, my wallet might look like? So if everybody wants to in the chat, go ahead and just type a couple descriptions of what you think my ideal wallet would be. I'm gonna just open up the chat window here for myself in case anyone posts.
Summer,
Not sure if the chat's working.
I'm also gonna test the chat to see if attendees have
either
access
everyone's
to chat.
still asleep because it's early or the chat function's not working.
Yeah,
but
if not
either
chat,
way, that's fine.
then the Q&A, there's 2 features. I'm not sure if this webinar
I
has
see.
Yeah, maybe try
It says
Q.
chat is disabled. Yeah, feel free to drop it in Q&A as well, if you've
Yeah,
got any thoughts.
yeah, put that in under Q&A, and that will allow us to get this.
Yeah. All right. So we'll use Q&A if there's any things we want to go through here. But as an example on this, there's so many different types of wallets out there, right? So it could be that we have large wallets, we have small wallets. Somebody says they think I like a simple wallet, and they actually would be right. So good job on that. But what the point of that is what I'll see a lot of times is when people go and start coming up with a really great idea and an entrepreneurship idea or a product idea, they're oftentimes feel like they already have the answers for their user group that they're designing for and know the answer based off of what they personally want. And while sometimes that works, quite oftentimes we really need to do some initial research to really understand people. So maybe right, maybe wrong. So I want to give everybody a couple minutes here to ask a couple questions. And it sounds like chat is now open. So if you want to use that portion, yeah, there we go. So throw in some questions about how you would interview me if you were designing a new wallet. So if you're trying to design the best wallet and I was a potential user group, what questions might you ask? Am I happy with my current wallet? I am fairly happy with my current wallet. So one suggestion, so great question, some feedback there. As you think about research, one thing when you're asking interview questions is that you oftentimes want to ask open-ended questions. So if you ask a question that can just be answered with like a yes or no, you don't get a lot of depth. So instead of saying, are you happy with your current wallet? A better way to phrase that would be, tell me about how you use your wallet, or tell me what you like about your wallet. And that will give you a lot more to work with. There you go. What do you like about it? What I like about it is that it is small. It is magnetic, so it actually attaches to the back of my phone. I actually don't carry a purse or anything. I just carry my phone, and this just snaps right onto the back of my phone right there. And I like that it is smooth. I like somebody called out that they thought I liked a simple wallet. They were right. So I just have 3 cards that sit in my wallet. I usually use Apple Pay, and have a little space for a little bit of cash for if that's needed. So I like the question on, I want to learn about your schedule ideally. That's a great question to ask. Oftentimes when we're doing research, and I'll actually jump over to that to show some of these. Oftentimes when we're doing research, there's a lot of different methods that we can take. So we can do things like ethnographic research, where we're actually doing interviews in person with people. We're doing observation, and actually seeing how they maybe interact with a certain product or how they walk through a service. There could be participatory research where you're asking them to actually do things for you. So that could be workshops where we're doing lots of sticky notes everywhere, or you're having them interact and provide content, or even have them just like journaling for something that's a little bit more complicated. And then there's evaluative research. So it could be things like think aloud testing. That's my favorite one when we're testing mobile apps, as an example, because you're able to actually have someone go through an app or a website or an experience and really just verbalize what they're thinking at every step and gets a lot of really great context. So these are just some examples here of different types of research that you can do. And I loved what Ravi pointed out earlier about observation. And being able to connect the dots on things. That's so important in a research context, and it's very powerful if you can really build those skill sets. So once we've done that, basically we would take all of our learnings from our interviews and our research and that we've done, and we want to take some time to actually summarize what we've learned here. Identify where are the pain points that we identified. What are the wants and needs? Where are the insights that we gathered? Consider what other types of people might have similar experiences. So how can we take the thoughts of what I shared and how can we make a broader market, and who would we market to? What might motivate me or others to buy a new wallet? All of these things will kind of help us as we go into our ideation phase. So let's talk about some of the ways that you can synthesize. So synthesizing, we can do lots of different things depending on the type of idea or solution or product that you're going for, the problem area that you're trying to solve. Some of my favorites that are on this list is the 5 whys, which is all about trying to get to it's root cause analysis. So if someone says, I don't like, why would you buy a new wallet? Because I don't like my wallet. Well, why? Okay, so I don't like my wallet because it is bulky. Well, why is it bulky? Well, because I have a lot of stuff in it. Well, what stuff is it? Like, why do you have so much stuff in it? It's like, okay, well, the problem isn't a wallet, it's because this person's a hoarder. But you get my point. When we go into, when we create initial challenge statements, when you start asking lots of questions, as Robbie mentioned earlier, you start getting to the root cause. And sometimes in innovation, and sometimes when we're coming up with solutions and ideas, we want to actually solve for the root cause, and sometimes we want to solve for a solution. But it's important to know where those things lie so that we're making those right choices. Some other examples that you might do as part of synthesis is things like personas, right? So personas help us think about, like, okay, if we're looking to create a simple wallet, what's an example person that would want this type of thing? What is it? Who are they? What are their goals? What are their pain points? What are their motivations? What's a little bit about them? What do we think the age ranges might be? Or what are the different ethnographic kind of components of that person? And this information can really help us to narrow down our focus on what we're doing. It can help us build a product around a specific market group that we now then know how to go and market to them, and we know the type of people we want to come in and do testing with. We can also do things like journey maps. So someone said, I want to learn about your schedule ideally. That would be a great example of saying, like, okay, walk me through your schedule. When are you using your wallet? How are you using it? Doing that step by step through the journey allows you to identify pain points and opportunities for how you can improve a product or service. So this is another great tool that we often use. For most segments, let's see, we have a comment here. For most segments, we have reports on problems in the segment. How to decide if we should go for user interviews might be authentic but biased when building for scale billions people, or trust the reports. I think that's a great question. Put it this way, the most useful form of research, in my opinion, is going to be always watching people. Because I always like to say users lie. They don't mean to lie, but they do. And a really great example of this is that there was a company that was creating a speaker, and they did a focus group. So another form of research. They brought a whole bunch of people in to talk about the new product that they were launching. They had all these different colors. So they had like 5 different colors. And they said, what color would you buy? And somebody was like, blue and red and yellow and all these different bright colors. And they said, great. Thank you so much for coming to the focus group. On your way out the door, we have a set of speakers, and feel free to grab one on your way out. Every single person picked up black. Users lie. They don't mean to lie, but they don't always tell the truth. And so for me, observation's always the most powerful one. That's not always viable at scale, to your point. And so that's where you can have these larger reports that can help to build that. Interviews also are kind of like a little bit better up, but users can lie. So it's always a lot of time, or a lot of times what we try to do is a mix of different research methods so that we can see preferably some of the observation elements, some of the interview type elements, and then where we've got research to be able to bolster that and give us a broader understanding from a larger user group can be really, really helpful. So great question. So then we get to reframing your problem. So as I mentioned, oftentimes once we get all of that research done, what we want to be able to do is look at that and say, you know what, the problem, the challenge that we're trying to solve for may have changed slightly. And so making sure that we actually reword that. So an example or some things when you're creating that kind of reframe or that challenge statement for yourself before you go into ideation is make sure that you've identified the problem. What is the challenge that you're really trying to solve for? What group of users are you trying to help? Start it with a how might we, because what that does is it frames it for how, solution based, might, we don't have the answer yet, we as a group, so especially if you're working in a group of people or thinking collectively, how might we do a thing, right? And actually create your statement. And the other key thing that we really have to watch out for when building these statements, and I see people do it all the time, is don't put the solution in your challenge statement because you limit your brainstorming and ideation capabilities. Focus instead on the desired outcome. So an example of this is a good challenge statement might be, how might we help workers get rocks from one location to another? Pretty broad. Solution or outcome based, we need to get rocks over here. It's the workers that we're trying to do this for. A bad example of this would be, how might we design a better wheelbarrow? If they're already using a wheelbarrow, we've now limited ourselves to actually building from a wheelbarrow's perspective rather than thinking broader. So then once we have our reframe challenge statement, we ideate on the problem. So we want to come up with, as I mentioned before, lots of different ideas. And that's going to help us come up with all the different ways that we could approach it, think outside the box. A lot of things I like to do, especially in workshop settings when it comes to ideation, is prompt yourself to think about it from different ways. So if you have your challenge statement, write all your ideas and then push yourself to say, how would Amazon solve that challenge? How would Apple solve that challenge? How would Disney solve that challenge? And it's very interesting how every time you prompt yourself from some of these different companies that operate and address things in different ways, it'll make you think of this problem from a different direction. And you might surprise yourself with coming up with some really neat and unique ideas. So to that, again, there's lots of different ways that we can approach this. And especially if you're doing any kind of group brainstorming, if you're working in a team, or if you're bringing in a group of users to help you brainstorm ideas to come up with your solution, then you can do a lot of these different areas. Some interesting ones I think to call out here is if you're doing workshops, I think concept posters and round robins are a great way to kind of think more broadly and kind of refine out. And some of the stuff you can do yourself as well. And if you look up these names, you'll kind of see examples of these types of formats if you haven't worked with these before. All right, and then bringing it to life in a prototype. So basically what we want to do is make sure that whatever we build, we're actually visualizing it. So as I mentioned before, this could be things like creating a storyboard. So actually doing some visualizations and tell the story of a user, especially in a service-based type of business or idea. It could be things like paper prototypes, where you're actually able to sketch things out on paper or print things out and walk through users and actually have them physically touch and interact with something and talk through it. It could be things like a Figma prototype if you're doing something digital, where people can actually click through and interact and provide feedback. So there's lots of different ways that you can approach it, especially with like 3D modeling nowadays. If you're doing anything physical, there's a lot of ways to just very rapidly prototype with things like laser cutting, 3D printing, modeling. It doesn't always have to be super polished, especially if you're doing it for your own purposes to really test out the feasibility of doing it, or for testing it with users. When you're going to leverage those things in a pitch, we typically want it to be a little bit more polished because we want to really sell the judges on our vision, but you have some different options depending on what you're looking to do. And then testing it with the users. So getting feedback. So as we think about taking that prototype and getting that feedback, I mentioned a couple things like the Think Aloud testing. You can do some like different, where you're going to be doing pitching. I mentioned the focus groups in that example I provided where you can get a lot of different users in a room and maybe like talk through your idea with them and just get some general feedback. But the important thing is do test it, because when you design inside of a box, you're never going to get everything right the first time, right? And so you want to make sure that you are putting the idea out there, you're getting feedback, other views, other ideas, because always keep in mind, I see all the time people come up with an idea or a concept, and that's their little baby, right? They're so passionate about it. And that's great. You got to have passion behind business and behind ideas. But you also have to keep in mind that you're not the person buying, right? And you've got to make sure that you're creating a solution, creating a product for a larger group of people. And to create that, you quite oftentimes have to be able to take that feedback and make adjustments to your baby. And that can be very hard to take that critical feedback and implement it in, but that's so important to the process and making something that's incredibly successful. All right. So I did want to just kind of throw up here, if this is something that's newer to you, there's some really great additional resources out there related to design thinking. Stanford has some great stuff, Luma Institute, IDEO. There's also some really great stuff around user experience design. If the Nielsen Norman Group is amazing, usability.gov, interactiondesign.gov, all these things are stuff that you can go and take a look at to learn more about this type of topic. Feel free to screenshot this. So I do a lot of work in entrepreneurship programs like this, actually with a lot of underserved high school students with one of the places I volunteer. And so this is something we actually provide this is something I provide to them and others that are doing pitch competitions, which is a storytelling framework, which all that stuff is great, but you got to be able to sell your idea. And so this is a really great way of framing up your pitch, and doing it in a way that'll kind of capture the judge's attention. So if this is helpful at all, feel free to screenshot that. And I'm also happy to share this over, Robbie, if anybody wants some of these materials.
Absolutely, yeah. I think so at this point, so you can raise your hand or you could use chat or put in the Q&A. Do you have any questions? Now, I could probably answer any of the questions on Taiyu and the Taiyu process. What's likely to happen. Summer can give you more advice on, making a stronger pitch. I mean, at this stage, you want to really have something solid to bring to the table. So, all right, let's see. You could either use chat or raise your hands. Go ahead.
I see one question came in that says, please explore more on the pitch deck side. So I'm assuming you mean this slide right here.
Yeah,
Is that
I
correct?
think that's the one. Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. I'm happy to do that. So essentially, when we're putting together a standard kind of storytelling approach, is you always want to start with the overarching point. So set the stage. Who are you? What are we talking about today? Let the judges know why we're here, right? And what you're about to jump into. Then we typically want to go from there on what is the problem or pain faced by the people that you're looking to solve for? Like, why do we even need this solution? We need to explain the problem space. Once we've explained the problem space, then we go into and talk about the solution. Here's the problem. This is how I'm going to solve it, right? Go through that. Then prove it with a demo, with a prototype, with something visual that's going to show them that what you said is the solution is something that feels real and viable. And then highlight what's going to be unique about that. Do you have technology, relationships, partners? How is this better than maybe what's out there already? How is it different than other things that are maybe on the market? What's new and innovative about your solution? Do you have any market research or proof, right? Things like that. Anything you can make it real is really great. And then you want to talk about the business model. Okay, so here's the idea, showed you it was real. This is how we're different. Now, this is how we're going to monetize it. This is how we make it a business. This is how it becomes a viable thing. Okay. Um, and then last but not least, the call to action or end statement. Are you pitching to people where you're asking for a specific amount of money? If so, what are you asking for? What do you need? Are you looking for support? Are you looking for money? Blah, blah, blah. So that may or may not apply in your specific situation, but that's often something we wanna highlight there. And then at the top here is some context setting things that I usually recommend people to line out for themselves so that as they write this out, they're constant reflecting back to say, what was the goal that we wanted to achieve or communicate for the story? And then you do all of this and you say, okay, did I meet that goal that I wrote out? Okay, check, no check, go back and rewrite. Also, who's the audience, right? Not your user group, but who are you pitching this to? If you know who the judges are, that's great. Go and research. What do they care about? Pro tip there, like pull on that piece. What are they looking out for? What do they want to see from your pitch? And make sure that that gets incorporated in that. And then also looking at the heartstrings. This is something that people don't often think about when they're putting together a pitch, but people are emotional. People are humans, right? And you want to figure out how are you pulling on an emotional heartstring with the story that you're telling, because emotion sells. Okay, so that's a really important part to line into all of this. Any other questions?
I love how
Oh,
you
go ahead,
said
Ravi.
I love how you said emotion sells, and the next workshop is going to be on storytelling. A friend of mine out of Coimbatore, Pradeep Yuvraj, um, he'd agree with you. In fact, man, I think we had to figure out a way to get the two of you to connect, because boy,
Absolutely.
how awesome would that be? All right, let's see. We've got someone raising their hand, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
see if I can get permission for you, sir, to unmute and talk away.
Am I audible?
Yes, we
You're
hear you.
you're quiet, but yes.
Okay, great. So, hi guys, Himanshu Daga this side from India, and I've been building AI products for last 5 years. Recent grad from 2020 though,
Awesome.
and I wanted to just discuss quickly about what we are working on, and your feedback and suggestions are most welcome. So, no specific
Yeah.
questions per se.
Okay. Hit me.
Sure. So we are working currently into the e-commerce space, and if we are talking about e-commerce, you might be familiar that two of the largest banes of e-commerce, first being low conversion rates, roughly just 2.5%, and then extremely high returns, right? Which makes many of these D2C businesses negative unit economics.
Okay.
So we are solving for that with very high quality 3D product visualization and virtual try-ons at scale. So we are building an AI system which just takes in 2D input images of your product, which most people do have access to. And from that, we recreate 3D experiences, which have already shown like 2x increase in conversions and 40% reduction in returns. So one is this approach, as I was just saying, and second approach, we still keep the same problem and solution, but way I can portray it is like, hey, do you know e-commerce? Although we are buying things online, we still have most e-commerce localized. Like people in US would be buying from companies near around them. Same for India or for any other country for that matter. Can't we directly buy someone in India buying from US, someone in US buying from China directly? We still have mediators doing drop shipping, increasing costs a lot. Why do we need that? Mostly because buying individually from a far off location reduces trust. And with our 3D AR technologies, we are making the threshold for trust much lower by making these purchases much more informed. So the crux boils down to, as you were saying, should we sell emotion or we should stick to numbers?
I think you always do both, right? It's okay to have an emotional impact to your story, but always having numbers to back up what you're doing shows that you've done your homework. And that's something that judges are always looking for in any kind of pitch competition, is making sure you've actually done your homework and that there's fact and research behind what you're doing. So I would say try to work in both on that.
Yeah.
One question for you.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Ravi.
No, take your question, then I have feedback for him.
Yeah. One question I had is, who's your buyer?
Buyers are brands, D2C brands.
Okay. Just making sure that that's where your focus was.
All right.
And look, so my feedback for you is
Yeah.
I agree with Summer. You got to do both. You got to sell it with actual numbers that are valid and data you can back up. But then you also got to remember the people listening are humans and they react to as humans do. But I gotta tell you, you gotta figure out. There's something called KISS, right? It's an acronym for keep it short and
Okay.
simple. So if your question or your description took, well into a minute to explain, there's going to be people that are like, all right, I'm already, people have the attention span of a goldfish or less than goldfish, I'm told, right? It's 9 seconds. So if
Okay.
you could come up with a faster or rather simpler, maybe using analogies, maybe using stuff people understand, but practice the KISS acronym in your pitch. It will go far. If the average, I mean, and remember, you're taking part in a pitch competition with a lot of, judges are likely to be successful entrepreneurs and in a very specific area, having expertise in a very specific area. So if you're sitting in front of a bunch of AI guys and you do your talk, they're gonna get it, and I don't think your 1 minute's gonna it's fine. But then if you're sitting in front of marketers or you're sitting in front of, fashion moguls or VCs who have made their money in import export, and they may not know the AI realm, you're gonna have to figure out a way to keep it short and simple. Okay, so appreciate the question. We're gonna check if there's.
That helps. Just a quick
Mhm.
response based on your KISS acronym. How about we are building OpenAI for e-commerce?
I would kick back and say, I'm making up numbers here. You clearly have some numbers, but put the emotion and numbers together. 3D models sell 30% more.
Great point.
There you go. Where would you like to buy? Right? How much would that add to your bottom line to increase sales by 30%?
Yep, makes sense. So I think I tried
Which
to
part of
add that
India?
during the
I'm curious to know which part of India are you calling us from or joining us
right
from?
now from Rajasthan.
Awesome. And look, I'm a big fan of the Rajasthan chapter. The president, Dr. Sheenu Jawar, is a very close friend. Summer, she and I presented at the Deshpande Symposium at Arizona
Nice.
State University earlier last year. So you've got a strong chapter, who cares about the TAIU program. I'd highly recommend, reaching out to the Thai charter member in Rajasthan and then bouncing ideas off of there because a lot of them have had, have heard these pitches before. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna definitely encourage you. It's a good chapter and it's got great folks who are available. Dr. Shinu I'm a big fan. So all right, cool. Let's take a pause here. I'm gonna ask if there's anyone else because we're in about 4 minutes wrapping up. Garima, if you're around, I'm gonna ask you to, give the guidance to the people to register for the next one. So just,
Sure.
queue up. But any other questions for Summer? If Summer, is it possible for you to share your LinkedIn or an email for people to maybe send you a
Yeah,
direct message? And
absolutely. I will, I'll drop my LinkedIn in the chat for anyone who wants to reach out or connect.
that's great. And I'm already getting people connecting with me on LinkedIn. That little buzz there was someone sending a connection. So I think we've done our job today. We've helped
Awesome.
one person. We're good. So look,
We had
Summer, I want to
some great questions.
Summer, I think what you've shared is fantastic. It's very relevant, and you delivered it so well. So I appreciate you, volunteering your time, supporting the Thai organization, and my personal passion of providing entrepreneurship education to as many people as we can. And this is something that I really enjoy, and I really appreciate you making the time. I know it's evening, and I probably had dinner and got work tomorrow, but I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. So everybody, just a round of applause for Summer. She deserves it. She did great. Garima, I'll pass it over
And
to
you
you
guys.
to close us off.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ravi. Thank you so much, Summer. Really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you everyone for joining in today as well. I am also gonna put a link in chat, the registration link for the next workshop. That will be February 9th for the Indian audience and February 8th for the US based and the West audience. So the registration link for the next workshop will be on your chat window now. So you can definitely just go in, register yourself for that particular workshop. It will be pitching skills and investor relations, as Ravi mentioned in uh, just a few minutes before. We'll have Pradeep Yuvraj. He is the best from whom you can learn and ask questions. And I'm sure it's like today. It's gonna be a great workshop for all of you to come in, attend, and get some knowledge. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. And if anyone wants to reach out, if they have any questions for Summer, for Ravi, you can also email us at university@thai.org. I'm going to drop that email address as well in the chat. So do reach out to us. I'm also going to send you an email with today's workshops, the slide decks, and anything that will help you to revise. Plus, the workshop will also be available on YouTube for all of you to go in and check and revise later. Perfect. Thank you so much.